help me decorate this thing?
Yes.
Get it all set up for the chickens?
Yeah. We're gonna have a lot of chickens.
50 of them coming pretty soon.
Whoa!
You
That's
can
gonna fill that whole thing. Now we decorate, Daddy.
Yeah, you can decorate it.
Hey.
Sure. So hey guys, a little bit of an overcast night, a perfect night for doing something inside, and even better if we can get something crossed off our springtime task list. We got 50 meat birds showing up at the end of this week, so we decided to put a little time and energy into getting at least one of the 2 brooder boxes set up and all ready to go. A lot of times you want to do this about a day or 2 before your chickens actually come home. This gives you an opportunity to get your heat lamp set at the right height so the temperature is correct, and then everything's all nice and toasty warm, so you can just plop them right in there and away you go. A little bit about the box that I'm using here. I'm using what they call a gaylord. A lot of times you can find these at warehouses. A lot of times raw materials shipped in them, sometimes parts, sometimes even scrap. And if you talk to some of them, a lot of times you can get these things for free. They're nice big thick boxes. They're not squared off. A lot of times they're kind of almost octagon type shape. Well, maybe not that many sides, but there's not quite as many corners. A lot of times what ends up happening with baby chicks is they can all cram into a corner and some of them can get injured, and this helps eliminate some of this. Plus it's a pretty big box, and we can get them for free. So that's part of the reason we use those. So one other thing we oftentimes do is cut a little door that can open and close on the front end of our gaylord. That way we can get in there and easily handle the chicks. Of course my daughter's going to want to get in there and handle them and play with them quite a bit, so it just makes it a little easier for us to get in close to them instead of having to reach all the way over the side. And one of these brooder boxes should house about 25 chicks pretty easily for 2 to 3 weeks before you need to start looking at upgrading them in size. So a good starting point for your heat lamp is somewhere around 18 inches. With these gaylords, it seems to be just a little bit higher. I think we're around 22 inches or something. We've gotten it dialed in. But what you're really looking for is to have right directly under that heat lamp around 95 degrees, 95 to 100 degrees. And then you want some space so they can get away from that heat and come back to it as well. For the heat lamp, we're using a 250 watt bulb. And you want to shop around a little bit. Going down to some pet stores or even like some of the farm stores, they can get pretty expensive. I've seen them for like $15 a piece or something. You know, you got your Brooder lamp, about $10, and then you got a bulb. A lot of times we find these actually at the hardware store. This one here in particular we found at Menards, and it was about $4. But I've been to different hardware stores and farm stores, and they always tend to end up being more like $10 to $14. And you're looking for a red heat lamp because this just seems to keep them a little bit more calm and not really pecking away at each other. So when we set up our Brooder lamp, we oftentimes end up removing the clamp itself. We don't have a lot of faith in this, and we end up going to a chain type setup. We feel a little bit more comfortable with that, as well as it gives us the ability to adjust the height a lot easier. We hook up a hook, and then we can just move that chain up and down on our lamp to adjust the height. So each week you're looking to reduce the heat 5 degrees in that Brooder box. So we just have to move it up, 3 inches worth of chain to make our adjustments. So usually the very first week we end up using newspaper or paper towels in the bottom of the Brooder box instead of using wood chips. A lot of times it seems like that first week it's just them trying to figure out where their food is, where their water is, and it just seems like it's one less distraction before we actually end up switching them to wood chips. One thing I do want to note is we're using pine wood chips. You want to make sure you avoid cedar wood chips because there are risk of respiratory issues. So one little tip I want to share with you that I heard that some of the big commercial chicken farmers do is if they have their chickens in a fairly large area, there's a lot of room for them to get away from that heat lamp, and they're having a hard time keeping them under there and they're getting too cold and just can't seem to figure out where that is. So you can actually hang like a normal light bulb very close to that, maybe a 25 watt LED bulb or something. It's not looking to put out the heat, but they are drawn to that light. And a lot of times I've heard that the commercial growers will do something like that. They'll hang that pretty close to their heat bulb, so that can help draw them in there. So we got another 4 more days here until the chicks show up. Pretty excited. I think Grace is even more excited. Should be a lot of fun. So anyways, I thought I would share how we set up our brooder box. Like I said, it's nothing really too fancy. It's worked very well for us, both with raising meat birds as well as layers. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.